With news dropping this week that multiple teams in the American League had decided to be buyers instead of sellers at the trade deadline, listen, it's going to be slim pickings during this trade deadline, but I want to review who's open for business. Guys, who I'm talking about just might surprise you. Let's see what the Cubs can come up with on this one. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, your number one spot for all things Chicago Cubs. I'm your host, Mike Jones. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode. Guys, do me a favor, smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, and of course, make sure that the notifications bell is turned on so that you don't miss a single episode of Chicago Cubs Central when we drop a new episode. Hey, Chicago Cubs took care of business over the weekend, be on Champions Weekend on top of that, getting 2 W's against the Minnesota Twins, winning that series. Shout out to the Chicago Cubs winning 5-2, and of course 10-1, both of those games. And we're excited for what the Cubs are doing. 56 wins, 56 times we have flown the W right here on the network. So make sure that you guys like, share, and subscribe, and that you guys also fly this W every single time the Chicago Cubs win a game. Now, we're here to talk trades. We're here to talk additions. We're here to talk a team that needs to get over the hump. How do you do that? I believe you do that because pretty much, and we've talked about it all week long with all the guests that I have. How do you get over the hump? You're going to have to do it by adding pitching. And the Chicago Cubs do have a golden opportunity here to do something that has not been done. And that is to make a monumental move that could send resounding effects throughout baseball. And it will show and signal that the Cubs are for real. What is that move? That move is to trade for none other than Mason Miller of the San Diego Padres. And whatever the cost is, you make that move. If that is an option, if that is available, you make that move. You don't worry about everything else. Everything else will take care of itself. You make that move. You do what you got to do to get that trade done. He is by far one of the best pitchers in baseball. And with Tag Skubal being off of the market, according to multiple sources, guys, this man right here, Mason Miller, can literally turn around your season. Now, you say to yourself, okay, but didn't we beat the Padres and Mason Miller last year in the postseason? Yes, we did. However, putting him on the Cubs puts us with multiple years of control left on his contract, puts us in the driver's seat, not only in the division, but also in the National League. I believe that this move, a move like this, can get us past teams like the Philadelphia Phillies, past teams like Miami, listen, it could even get us past the Dodgers. I mean, like I said, but it'll definitely get us past Milwaukee. And that is the thought process here. What do we do? What do we do to close that margin of error, close the gap between us and the Milwaukee Brewers so that we can win the Central Division? Well, I'll tell you what that is. You need to go out and get a flamethrower like Mason Miller at whatever the cost may be. So the reports came out. It was first reported by Bob Nightingale that rival executives are convinced the Padres will buy and sell at the same time and will trade Mason Miller. Mason Miller does not hit free agency until after the 2029 season. This means that you have absolute control over him for multiple seasons, and he can pitch for you not only in the out of the bullpen maybe this year as a closer, but you could absolutely stretch him into a starter role. Now, here, another report said this, that one question being kicked around at Petco Park is whether moving Miller as a part of a package that includes Bogarts is a proposition too beneficial to pass up. It is practically a foregone conclusion that the Padres will eventually find a way to get out from under a portion of the $25 million they owe their underperforming 33-year-old shortstop each of the next 7 seasons. If someone were willing to take on some of Bogart's salary and Bogart's waived his no trade clause, it might tip the scales. So again, you're looking at this and you're saying to yourselves, well, who's somebody that needs a shortstop but also needs bullpen help? Now, I hate to say that it's not the Chicago Cubs. It's not the Chicago Cubs. They aren't doing anything with Dansby Swanson. They aren't trading Dansby Swanson. The Cubs need bullpen help. They are not. They're locked in with Dansby Swanson at the shortstop position. They are locked in with Alex Bregman at the third base position, which was originally rumored years ago when Bogarts was on the table that Chicago made an offer to him to come join the Cubs at the same time. Like I said, that they also got Dansby Swanson. It was supposed to be Swanson and it was supposed to be Bogarts at the same time. They were going to move Bogarts over to third base. However, that didn't happen. So what happens now? Well, like I said, the Chicago Cubs are in the race and in the running, but the main team that is supposedly reportedly pursuing Mason Miller is none other than the New York Yankees, who also need a shortstop. So, like I said, they are unhappy with what they have on the shortstop position. So they are reportedly aggressively trying to get Mason Miller as well as get Xander Bogaerts from the San Diego Padres. So that's good news for the Yankees, not so good news for the Cubs. The Cubs need to get in front of this. I said all that to say the Cubs have to get in front of this. They have to make a move. They have to be proactive in this situation. You got to get better around the margins. You know you need better pitching. I'm not impressed by picking up or trading for Aaron Savali. I'm not impressed by picking up guys that have recently been on the team. I don't love the fact that you have Drew Pomeranz back on my club again. I don't like this. I want a guy that's a game changer, somebody that's young, somebody that you have team control over, somebody that can pitch his ass off. And again, it relieves Daniel Palencia. Remember, last year in the postseason, Daniel Palencia thrived coming into the game in the 5th, 6th inning and just being damn near unhittable. And like I said, and you can stretch him out, that way. So again, and then because if you put Miller in and pray to God, you get Hobie Milner back, which that should be fairly soon, and you pray to God that Phil Maton figures out how to pitch again. Then you go from there and you say to yourself, listen, Cubs put themselves in a very, very good position to do something really, really special. Mason Miller is one of those generational talents that changes the trajectory of the Chicago Cubs. And again, that's just something that we need to look at. That's absolutely something that we should, as a team, be considering. So again, like I said, the Chicago Cubs are looking at Mason Miller. So I also am looking at Mason Miller and wondering if this is something that we could absolutely do. They are open for business. Like I said, there are a few teams that are open for business. There's actually a team that's going to be in another episode that we're going to talk about that is also open for business and willing to trade pretty much any and everything. You also got to look at Baltimore. Baltimore is open for business too, as well as Cincinnati. These are teams that the Chicago Cubs need to be looking at. It sucks because we planned to pillage from the American League, but the American League as a whole is so bad. Nobody's out of a wild card spot outside of the Athletics and the Angels. Everybody else pretty much has an opportunity over there to make a move and to get something. But what say you guys? Do you guys want Mason Miller to be a part of your club? Let me know your thoughts below. The Chicago Cubs also opened up Champions Gate this past week. At Wrigley Field. It is a part memorializing all the championships that the Chicago Cubs have won. There are 3 to be exact. And they welcome back pretty much the whole 2016 team, honoring them as they opened the gate, especially on Saturday. You had everybody back from Kyle Hendricks to Joe Madden to like literally everybody that you can imagine. That's a former Cub. So again, it was just one of those things where it was one of those weeks that you really, really enjoyed a weekend of baseball, and the Cubs won. And you had Michael Busch knock a home run right to where Anthony Rizzo was. And like I said, it was actually behind Anthony Rizzo, but he then gave the ball to Anthony Rizzo. Just a great weekend of baseball, man. Everybody enjoyed themselves. One of my cohorts on another one of my shows was there. But again, like I said, excited for Champions Gate. I'm excited to walk through it, take pictures there. Can't wait to get to the ballpark to do so. The Chicago Cubs do open up a 3-game series, another winnable series. This one, they're going up against the Detroit Tigers for a 3-game set. We receive the return of Jameson Taillon, who will pitch Monday and Monday's game for the Chicago Cubs. Jameson Taillon has a record of 2-5 with a 5.19 ERA. The home run ball has plagued him all year. He will see Jack Flaherty, who, unlike last season, has not had a great season this year. Jack Flaherty has a 4.48 ERA, and he is somebody that has mightily struggled too with 3 wins and 8 losses. So very, very interesting to see what the Chicago Cubs and the Detroit Tigers will do. They open up a 3-game series set. Again, this is another series. I expect the Chicago Cubs to win. Point blank, period. I don't really care what anybody else has to say. I want the Chicago Cubs to win this series. You have to win the ones that you can win. You beat these guys, and then you go up against the Pittsburgh Pirates in a weekend series set, and then you go to St. Louis for 4. And those games in St. Louis are going to be important, because after that, then you got the Yankees and you got the Dodgers, and you just don't know how those games are going to play out. So Cubs got to win while they can. And like I said, to continue to build up their record. They're going to go through some struggles again, but they will also come out of it. Again, I'm feeling really, really high on this Cubs team coming out of All-Star break, especially taking the series against the Twins, win this against Detroit, and then go on to face the Pirates and beat them also. Listen, guys, I appreciate each and every last one of you so much. I hope that you guys enjoyed last week's content, all the different co-hosts and guests that I had on. I hope that you guys continue to enjoy it. We're going to do more of that. And make sure that you guys stay locked in here. Give me your thoughts below on Mason Miller potentially being traded for the Chicago Cubs. I have another episode up for you tomorrow for another Cubs Central episode. Until next time, go Cubs, go.
Thank you for watching another episode of Chicago Cubs Central, the #1 spot for all Chicago Cubs content. Remember to like, share, subscribe for more Cubs content.